Okay, so welcome, Matt Bell, to the Shine Seminars interviews. This is 45 speakers, 45 interviews for 45 minutes in 45 days. Matt is the second person I've interviewed so far, and he has very kindly agreed to come to the celebration on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of August in the Forest of Dean. So I am honoured and privileged to be with you today, Matt. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Eli. It's lovely to connect with you and similar groups who are in that positive state of mind and kind of creating wonderful new things.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So I heard a little bit about your work, Matt, and how you're doing amazing things down on the South Coast. I can feel the rumble of energy and activations going on there. Can you just tell me a little bit about what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm quite busy at the moment with all these lovely projects. For one, I sort of organise the local stand in the park in Blandford Forum in Dorset. So we have a nice gathering of people there, sharing their truths and standing in their freedom. So that's a lovely little community. But I'm also building a website about positive living communities, PLC for short, where we're bringing people together. And we're kind of helping create that network of light, that sort of higher consciousness economy, and that sort of higher frequency consciousness that's all sort of heart-based and unity consciousness and holistic, really. So really kind of it all started when I was about sort of 7. I kept on getting strange experiences that I couldn't really sort of share with people because it wasn't in their frame of reference. So all the way along, it started with seeing sort of frescoes talking in a church and various things like that. And then later on, it was craft coming down and having interactions with what I call star family, which what people know as extraterrestrials. So yeah, I've sort of had a sort of growing connection with star family, and through that, I'm an artist, so I see the world in a slightly different kind of perspective through things like sacred geometry and energy and the way that all flows. So I've kind of got this different perspective on the nature of physics, really. And through this connection with Star Family, they've been sharing lots of this ancient knowledge, which I'm loving, sharing with everyone, because it's kind of bringing in those kind of concepts that sort of prevent us from continuing those cycles of death and destruction and dictatorship and revolution. So we're breaking those old cycles and bringing people's consciousnesses up to the level where they kind of, instead of making weapons, they make devices that heal each other and things like that and restore kind of the ecosystem and things like that. So I've been working with various groups. Part of that is people like Cosmic Agency and Gosha, who is in contact with Pleiadians in orbit at the moment, and that's lovely as well because there's a bit of interaction there. We can get people to ask questions to them, and then they can respond as well. But I'm in contact with my star family, which are the Galactics. They're kind of seen around the world as kind of flaming meteors that kind of dance in the sky, or just kind of hovering flames. So those are my star family. I've been holding star family kind of evening gatherings and bringing people together, and then taking them through my protocol, which I kind of developed when I, with this star family connection that I had, which is kind of 5 simple steps really anyone can do, and the instructions are on my Telegram page. If people want to connect to their star family, literally outside their back door, all they need is a night sky and stars.
Fantastic.
And so I've been working on that, and then I'm currently building a high frequency portal, which is to bring people to 5D. So bring people through the portal to a higher consciousness kind of state of mind, really. And it's a kind of experiential thing where they kind of walk through a big kind of hoop effectively lit up poop, and they kind of get to experience what it's like in those higher states of consciousness, and then they can take that away with them. It's a sort of portal of joys, it's all lit up and kind of lights and stuff like that. So that's hopefully going to be released on the solstice at Knowlton Church as well in the evening. So yeah,
let us know about that, and we'll certainly spread it amongst the network.
Yeah, thank you.
It sounds like that experience of going through the portal, you'll never actually come fully back down again, right?
Well, the hope is that you kind of get the idea of what's going on in 5D.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of get the that's an amazing, brilliant whole new realm, the higher frequencies. People don't want to go back because they realize kind of what the traps are, and and how low frequency they'll be returning to again. So
yeah.
It's a really nice way to bring people through that mindset change and that perception shift, because we've removed the veil from the planet now, but now it's kind of removing the veil from people's minds, really, and helping them through those states of consciousness. So that's really kind of what I'm doing at the moment.
That's absolutely fantastic. I tell you what, that's really interesting where you put that, because I've been walking around for the last 2 years going, the veil's gone, it's all over, we're in 0 point, but actually we're not aware, and as soon as we become aware, then we can start working with that energy. And I feel a lot in the freedom movement, in inverted commas, that that people haven't quite moved into that space yet. So the work you're doing is really powerful and very validating, because that's what's happening. The frequency is raising, and enablers like yourself, way showers like yourself, putting people into different states of consciousness. One thing that's really interesting is a lot of people at the beginning of COVID were like, "Oh, I want it to go back to how it was." And it's like, whoa, hold on, no. That's not what this is about at all. Because we have lived in that world for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah,
we're breaking away from it, and it is difficult to do that.
And absolutely. I mean, it's from birth. I mean, I was thinking about it. They do the pinprick, the heel prick.
Yeah.
And to kind of, or they smack you. To bring you into, into being, into this sort of realm, and that kind of sets your consciousness as like an external consciousness. So people are, constantly from that point on, then indoctrinated. All of us have gone through that process, and really, the majority of people are in that state of illusion where they think this is reality. That kind of that the government is authority and they have your best welfare, that the various authorities, are looking out for you. So most people still are sort of in that state, of that sort of first stage of consciousness, where they're very trusting and very, kind people, but kind of misguided in some ways. And that's the kind of to me kind of consciousness, why are these things happening to me and stuff like that, but then, you can shift into the second state of consciousness, which is kind of growing awareness, becoming more aware of, say, things not matching up, words not matching actions, seeing through certain things and seeing the contradictions. And that kind of gets your awareness up, like, I'm sort of seeing things that aren't necessarily true, or what are said to be true. And then you sort of go, and that's the kind of by me. Those are the things that I'm creating. Those are the situations that I can see that by me are affecting others and myself. And then there's a third stage as well with that, which is the sort of transformational stage. Effectively, the first two are the caterpillar stage, and the third stage is where you kind of reevaluate all your kind of what you've known before, and you go through that kind of extensive search and expansion of knowledge, gaining knowledge, because you're sort of hungry for the truth. You really want to sift out all those thoughts and beliefs that you had previously and validate them as to whether they're true or not. So you kind of go through this whole process of transforming within and shifting out all the sort of false stuff that you've discovered, and because nature abhors a vacuum, it kind of brings in more of those positive light frequencies, and then you kind of find that you're on this journey of truth, and you become more and more aware, expanded consciousness about what the nature of reality is. And then, you know, if you're lucky enough, from that you can go into the fourth state, which is divine expansion. Basically, from there you're part of the oneness, your source itself, and you're gleaming all these wonderful insights and data and downloads and uploads and stuff, because you've reversed your magnetic field, and all that light, all that sort of information from the universe is literally being pulled towards you like a magnet, rather than you kind of resisting it in this illusion and kind of living in your own false bubble. You're in that awakened state of where you know that you're actually source, a fractal part of that source, and that you can literally sort of manipulate reality and nudge things, you know, in a more positive way, to manifest things more in your life that you focus on. So it's really powerful, those sort of 4 stages, and I'm really helping people go through those, whatever stage they're at, you know, giving them some assistance and information, and then helping them raise their frequency even higher, and go through those various stages on that sort of enlightened path, really. It's lovely actually seeing people blossom and really come into themselves and really, you know, click and get it. So that's what motivates me really to do all this.
Yeah, it is fantastic work, and you know, I mean, it's interesting because the waking up process, you know, of the trance that we've been in, it's a fascinating time to be alive, to watch that. And obviously, you know, there are those people who are still concentrating on the 3D and the matrix and the big machine that's been created around us. But those people who are getting on to the inner work and actually getting in touch with themselves, you can see it over the last couple of years. I've slowly, like, hold on, I knew that person 2 years ago, and now they're doing this, and now they're talking about this, and now they're being this, you know. And it is absolutely, it's magical to see. It's happened to me, you know, it's happening to me. And I think that I said at the beginning of COVID, I said, even the most enlightened person is going to be is going to have their mind blown by this process. You know, that's what I felt. That's what I felt. It didn't matter where you were in your own sort of path. Things were just going to completely activate you and, you know, move you forward and move you up. And if you embraced it, you could do it faster and more efficiently. And some people have just literally clicked into it. And I truly believe, and I know somebody will disagree with me on this, but I truly believe everybody will wake up.
They do, yeah. Everyone's on that ascension path.
Whether you believe that too.
Well, that's I know it. It's not a case of believing it, because from I've you know, a time travel as well, so I've seen that process over thousands of years, and I've seen that how everyone you know, everyone's on their soul journey, and basically through those kind of physical experiences in each shell, in each life experience, you learn new things. You give yourself a limitation and the power to forget, and you come through the birth portal, but you have all that string of previous lives before you on your soul journey. And so, for example, people who, I don't know, drowned in the previous life will have a fear of water or swimming in this life. And same for things like needles. You know, they may have died at the hand of a needle in the last life, so they're needle phobic in this life. So you do see some sort of progression along these along individuals' soul journeys, and everyone is ascending at their different levels. So some people in this lifetime won't actually make it out of phase 1 of consciousness, so that's sort of the illusion state, because that's their whole reality and that's what they see reality as, and they won't shift out of that. But say many kind of journeys, life journeys ahead, they'll reach a certain level of awareness or knowledge about reality, and something will click and then they'll move into the next stage. So everyone's going to go on that journey, and no one is left behind as well. So yeah, it's a lovely process because everyone, you know, is at their various stages, and they're all valid, but everyone's on that path up in frequency as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've known that just intuitively that was what the process is. I mean, the planet can't ascend if the people on it don't ascend at the same time, and all the creatures as well. The whole planet's going to do that process, and you know, I think that, you know, it's kind of, you know, I use this word. I've used this word alignment a lot today because I did another interview earlier.
A lot too. Yeah.
But
with
well, I think it's interesting because I mean, it'd be interesting to hear you know, some of the work you do in terms of helping people either in groups or individually, because I asked a question the other day in one of my interviews, that I said, you know, the big thing for me at the moment, and I think you probably agree with me, is that especially in some of the social media settings, is that we are just still in the narrative of the old world.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the external world. And I asked the question, how do we move people if it's for us to do that? But how can we help to move people to look inward and start doing inner work and get more, you know, more attuned and aligned with ourselves? Just as a stage one. So, you know, do you do work? You know, how do you do that work?
Yeah, I do. I help. I do individual consultations, but I help groups as well. So I've done talks and events as well. It's really kind of various stages. First of all, you know, you have to get people to become self-aware, to know thyself, to kind of start looking inward. And the way I kind of explain that really is consciousness works in two ways. It works in outward flow and it works in inward flow. So think of like a magnet. A magnet, two opposite poles will attract. That's inward flow. And two same poles would repel. That's outward flow, because we're these electromagnetic beings. So really it's starting to get people to do a bit of meditation, because I sort of use the analogy of a bath plug and a tap. People who are in ego, in that kind of 3D mode, they're in reactive, radial, entropic energies that are just flowing out, and they're not thinking about themselves. They're kind of in a state of unawareness. So it's really getting people to kind of shift their focus onto themselves, onto self-development, and to sort of see themselves as an observer, sort of behind, you know, with as much neutral kind of no judgment, just neutral kind of observation. And then people can kind of start observing their thoughts and the thought processes. You know, it's like weather. Some thoughts are sort of dark and stormy, and some thoughts are light and sunny, you know. So, but you don't have to necessarily, and you can entertain the thought, but you don't necessarily have to act on it. So getting people to step out of themselves and look at themselves from a sort of outsider point of view, observe their thoughts and their actions, is kind of the first step. And that really is things like meditation, self-reflection, introspection, times where you don't have any distractions really, where you can be on your own and you can kind of have that calm stillness and just to think without any kind of distraction. Because one of the programs is to distract people from the present moment. It's all about projection in the future, you know, oh, what's going to come, what's happening. Or it's all about nostalgia. Oh, that was brilliant in the past, or that was terrible in the past, whatever you perceive that. But nothing to do with keeping you, you know, bringing you into the now present moment, which is where all life exists, where the quantum field is, where all that source information is, where you can tap into that universal source information field from within. So it's getting people to meditate, because then they become like the bath plug. All information comes, all water comes through them, through that, you know, the plug hole. So all that light and information comes through them. Whereas most people are in that kind of tap mode, where it's just flowing out. All their kind of light and information and egos flying out. So getting people to start to kind of meditate and have a bit of calm, sacred space. If you create a nice sacred space that's non-negotiable, where you can, you know, put some nice things like crystals or incense around, and maybe some light music that's not too distracting, and then you can have that calm me time, you know, that bubble of reflection and without any distraction. So that's kind of one of the first ways in which I can kind of help people start to turn their attention around and back onto themselves, but in a more positive, sort of a neutral way, where they're not judging themselves negatively. Because a lot of people turn in on themselves. They kind of you know, they're upset. Their inner child needs work. You know, there are a lot of issues that they haven't resolved from childhood, and it's really helping people kind of do their shadow work, which is all the things that they kind of feel bad about, that they've kind of feel that they created, or, you know, getting them to make friends with their inner child, and so that they can be more harmonious internally.
It's interesting you talk about meditation, because you know, I've openly talked to people just generally over the last 3 years. Oh, do you meditate? Which I think is something that people didn't necessarily say. I'm calling this period the apocalypse, the great revealing, because that's what it is. It's a great revealing, and you know, I've been quite forward in my kind of you know, opening up conversations about things that weren't spoken about before. And one of them is, oh, do you meditate? And I mean, I'd like to get your take on this, because I've met people who said to me, oh, I don't meditate. Look at me, I'm really calm and relaxed. I don't need to meditate. And, you know, my answer to that is, well, you know, that's fantastic that you found that peace in, you know, and you're in a walking calmness, which is a great place to be anyway. But, you know, have you meditated? You know, oh, well, I don't, I'm not comfortable with it. And my question to you is, you know, I've heard a lot of resistance. I've seen a lot of resistance from people just sitting there. I know in some of the groups I've been in, we've just called for a moment of silence, which is quite a good, you know, leeway.
Yeah.
Moving in. So it's not, we're not calling it meditation. We're just saying we're just going to sit in silence for 5 minutes, just to bring in, you know, some nice calm energy. And if I'd said, oh, let's meditate for 5 minutes, you know, oh, so, you know, well, that's what I've come across. And it would be lovely to hear what you think about how to kind of move through those blockages, and how you help people to move through those blockages, you know.
Well, there's one of the exercises I do is the chakra seed sounds. So basically, you can create tones of sound with your voice that then vibrate at specific chakra points in your body. And if you the universe is constantly flowing through you. It's when we kind of resist that creates illness and disease and things like that. So it's helping people unblock that flow. So the chakra seed sounds are a way of helping them sort of tune up their energetic meridian effectively, like a kind of harp, a musical instrument. You know, you're helping them tune up. But meditation is quite an interesting one, because some people naturally meditate. They're naturally introspective, and they just find that easy to do, and it's no big deal, and they wouldn't necessarily call that meditation. They would just call that calm reflection, you know. There are certain principles in meditation that people do have trouble with. For example, the distraction of the mind. You know, the whole point of meditation, once you practice it for a while, is that you get used to, you're training your mind to be in a different state. So what doesn't come naturally, first of all, because you're sitting there. When I was doing meditation, first of all, I'd be like, oh, that's a bird, oh, that's a car, oh, that's, you know, I'd label it all, and kind of like, but eventually at some stage you work out that it's really not, that is normal, and everyone goes through that process because your mind is always translating forms of energy, whether that's sound or light, etc. So I would say that bringing the main aim really is to bring you into the awareness of your present moment, yourself in that present moment in time and space, effectively, which is eternal. So it's really starting to get people to kind of relax firstly, and not worry about getting anything wrong. You can't get it wrong because everyone has their own way of learning and adapting. So there's no right or wrong way. But it's sort of explaining to people those kind of natural processes that people go through when they start meditation, which is, oh, I can't get into that, that zone, or I, I do the breath work and get all dizzy, or you get people saying, I do meditation, but I just can't stop crying. So there's various, you get people who maybe are doing too heavy breathing and they're getting too much oxygen, and then they'll get dizzy. So it's not about that. It's just a relaxed state that you extend your breath to and that you feel comfortable at. You don't have to force anything, and that generally kind of gets longer as you kind of get more relaxed. Your breaths get longer, and it's kind of generally saying when people's heart chakra starts opening up, that's when the floodgates open. That's when the tears come. So that's actually a positive sign, because what you're doing through those tears, I mean, if you analyze those tears through a microscope, they'll have different shaped crystals to say tears of anger or tears of sadness. So these are clearing tears. There's clearing out all these kind of negative thought scripts, all these kind of suffering that you feel. It's a kind of form of release. So when people start crying because they've done the breath work, they're aware of themselves and their body's sounds, that they open up their heart chakra, and then that's the process. That's the correct process of clearing out some of that dense lower energies, because that's what meditation does. So it's really getting people not to worry too much about getting it right or wrong initially, and then just basically explaining those sort of circumstances that people go through when they start to learn how to meditate. And it just takes a bit of persistence, and generally after a while you'll just find that groove.
It's not called meditation practice for nothing.
Yeah.
That's always like really hit me. It's like we talk about meditation practice, and it's just a constant practice. It's a constant mastery, and it's a constant learning how to quieten the mind, work on the breath. I remember I heard somebody many years ago say there's 4 parts to the breath. I was like, wow, 4 parts to the breath. What is it? Well, it's the in breath, it's the pause, it's the out breath, it's the pause.
What, normal breathing? Wow.
And it just blew me away, because this guy had obviously worked on being in that state for so many years. He could talk about breathing for hours and hours and hours. But it's a very powerful process, and in fact, it is a tragedy and a terrible thing, really, that we have had all these distractions and the externalizations to not actually look at ourselves and know thyself, like you said.
Absolutely. They don't want that at all, because when people start to get to know themselves and have a bit of thinking time to themselves, they kind of start realizing and going, hang on, what am I actually doing here? I'm looking at a box of lights all day long, which it's called a tell-eye vision, so and they kind of start coming out and kind of seeing reality more as it actually is, rather than in that kind of trance state which television puts you in, and the media in general.
For me, when we move more into a divine state and more connected, we get this huge amount of positive energy. We charge ourselves, and actually, we can manifest in much more powerful ways. You've got to be careful what you think of, what you wish for. Once you get into that real state, you can pretty much, if you become a master, you can do whatever you want. We are, the power of the universe.
Absolutely. I mean, the double slit experiment proves that nothing that is observed is unaffected by its observation. So that shows you intrinsically that you're linked to everything in the universe, and that by the mere observation of it, you're transforming it yourself, but you're also transforming the thing that you're observing. And it's very much the whole universe really is consciousness. And the way that works is it kind of shines. We have a mind and we have a body. It shines into the mind, and then from the mind it shines into the body. So all this is actually technically an illusion of our consciousnesses. And so we, come into this realm with limitations on purpose, so that we can grow into that space of not knowing, to become aware of that. Otherwise it would be a terribly boring place to be, being a god, eternal being, and just knowing everything, and it'd be very dull. So someone along the line thought, oh, I've actually given myself the power I'm a god, I can actually give myself the power to forget each time under this process of eternal learning. So it's a lovely thing, when people learn these kind of simple, very ancient knowledge about the self, and do the self-development. They come into that positive mind state because they're no longer suffering from those sort of collective agreements in the illusion as well. So it's really lovely because then people's kind of ideas come online. They come light up. They become healthier, actually, because one of these, people don't really understand that they've got superpowers already. Forgiveness is a superpower, because you're not allowing, you have the choice to cut that energy cord and no longer keep that feeding around inside you. But also things like joy. Joy is a superpower. It's a bit like kind of sunlight to a vampire. Really dark entities or low frequency entities cannot grab a hold of you if you're in that positive self-loving state, not in the ego state, but in that self kind of care loving state where you're not self-loathing or beating yourself up about something, or dwelling on particular trauma in the past. So yeah, it's lovely to see people blossoming, and then when you've got a whole community of people like that who have done their kind of inner shadow work, it's such a lovely group to be in, because there's no undertones, there's no inference under a sentence, or there's no kind of double meanings to things. What you see is what you get, kind of thing. So, and you come away from that really kind of sated, your heart's really full, because you're like, there are some lovely people around you who are not putting you down, who are bigging you up, and encouraging whatever you're doing. So it's a completely opposite, different states to that 3D illusion of competition. It's more collaborative, and what unites us, what are our similarities, that unity consciousness, which is where we're going, because we're on that abundance timeline now. So yeah,
it's great, Matt. It's really inspirational to hear you talk like this. I mean, when we do, I mean, you've not been to the Shine seminars, but I'll just tell you briefly. So we do a combination of sovereignty, health and well-being, nutrition, and spiritual practice. That's that's the three things we do, and the sovereignty is in there to break the illusions. So we have people like David Aderman and Carly Spell come along, and
lovely.
They break the spell, and that's the first thing that we kind of do. And obviously looking after the temple is important. I'm slightly overweight. That's my shadow work at the moment.
I'm very battered and damaged. I've lived a very full life. Yeah.
Me too. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at it and look at those fantastic things, and we try and do that. And then we do healing work. I love sound work.
Yes.
Sound baths and gongs and stuff. And we have B and David from the Bars of Avalon quite regularly, and we had Chloe Goodchild come and talk about the naked voice and empowerment of voice. So it's it's amazing, actually, because the first one we did was just electric, because it was just right after lockdown. It was like September 21.
Very much needed.
Yeah, and it didn't nearly happen. It was just like, and I was just like, it's going to happen, and we made it happen. And the atmosphere was amazing, and the atmosphere on every single one of our events is just electric, and there's something very unique about the people who are drawn to it. There seems to be a real positivity, and people are tapping into the magic, and that's what we're trying to cultivate. I mean, I just hold space for the event, and the event just happens, around me, sort of thing. But creating those sacred spaces for a number of people is really, really powerful. And I've tried to keep the numbers down. We did 125 people, I think, which was the biggest one we've done, but we tend to keep them around 65, 70. Obviously, for the celebration, we've got a festival site, and we might have 150, 300 people. But it is just what you said. It's about that open-heartedness. It's about taking people for who they are and what they are in that moment. A lot of people healing each other. The site itself will have had. I'll just tell you this because Sundara Community is on our site, and I'm renting the land off the people who run Sundara and Rainbow Camp. So there's Sundara, then there's us, and there's Rainbow Camp. And Sundara is the most beautiful festival. It's a bit ashram. It's like an ashram, really. It's very Indian Vedic knowledge, and I was there last year, and I went with my son with his friends, and one of those beautiful moments in the, we call it. Tanya doesn't like to call it a festival because it's not a festival. It's a community.
Yeah.
But I was standing on the field, and I was just like, this is real life. This is how we live. And that out there is absolutely not where we need to be. And but it was, I've been to festivals before in the past where I've gone, I never want to leave this thing, but it was kind of hedonistic and very kind of like running on a false frequency a lot of time, or artificial. But this was just wholehearted, grounded, very healing. And it really did hit me that, truly community can work. And it can work with a lot of people. I think there was like 200 people there or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really did work. And it was beautiful you'll see we'll do this at the celebration, but everybody on the site got in a big circle in the morning, and everybody went, I'm going to do some Reiki, I'm going to do some acupressure, I'm going to do some yoga, I'm going to do this. And everybody was like, oh, yeah. And then they all scuttled off and all healed each other. It was just incredible. Brilliant. And, just to have that taste of that is just fantastic. And I think that's where we are going. There's no doubt. All that energy, all that old legacy stuff is just falling behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, the star family, Pleiadians and stuff, they talk about dominant frequency and how love is the strongest force, and thought is the fastest thing in the universe as well. So we've got these superpowers, and really when you realize that how powerful love is at uniting things and bringing people together with that non-judgment in that sacred space where they can be themselves, is really really important, actually. And it's a good way of saying, what's acceptable within that space and what's not acceptable that's outside of that space. And really kind of what I'm doing at the moment is very much similar. We're saying that the 5D, the higher consciousness, is actually here now. It's on the ground. There are people working in that 5D frequencies, such as myself and such as you, which is really kind of, creating these kind of 5D bubbles that will expand out basically and merge. So we're kind of creating that alternative narrative that's making the old one obsolete, because that was obviously dependent on control and lack of freedoms and deceit. So it's the complete antithesis, the complete opposite of that, which is bringing people together and encouraging them to blossom in their own particular way, their own unique. One of the things about bringing people through ascension is that they unlock their DNA codes. When they're connecting with star family, they're getting like a kind of a series of codes that are helping unlock their DNA. And so we're getting people who are becoming more psychic, or more they're unlocking clairsentience or clairvoyance, and various kind of gifts that they've got naturally within them. So it's lovely because that's then allowed to blossom and flourish. and people are finding their sort of passions in what they love to do, and then getting paid for that, really, so
Yeah.
it's a very positive outlook we've got. Yeah.
I've always believed this. I had the opportunity to go and live in Puerto Rico in 2020, and it was a beautiful offer, and I knew it was a test. I knew it was a test. Some friends in my Facebook group had bought a big 250-acre ranch, and they were like, Eli, sell up, bring your family over here, and I said to my wife, I said, look, we've had this offer, go and live in Puerto Rico. And I said, what do you think? And she said, I don't know. It was like, it was really lovely, but it took like 30 seconds to just say, we've actually got work to do here.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, actually, in the southwest of England, pretty much, I'm not going to put any limits on it, but there is a very powerful sense of ascension here, and enlightenment, and willing to reject and not comply, and go out and be in nature. And there are lots of growing projects, lots of schooling projects, people opening up their properties and their land to the community. And it does feel like, down in the southwest and all the way down to Sussex, I guess, there's great projects down there, and we're showing the way. We're like the way showers, and we're moving up. And as we're moving up, people are like, hold on, well, this is going on and this is going on. And like you say, it feels like, things are just going to come together, and people are, I've tried to reach out to people in Oxford, and I haven't tried, I have, made those kind of connections. But I think in the southwest, we've got fantastic work to do, because the energies are so powerful here. I've just spent, the best part of 3 weeks in Avebury, Wells, Glastonbury.
Oh, nice.
And it's been electric. It's just, the atmosphere has been truly remarkable, actually. And I'm sure it is down your way as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, where we are, there's lots of ley lines and sacred earthworks and mounds. I do a gathering at Knowlton Church where lots of people are coming along, and a lot of the star teachings I've done at Old Sarum as well, which is on a ley line. And this the land, that is very ancient, and it's got all these kind of ancient energies, and these henges and these ancient earthworks. They are, the people who are kind of raising and doing the self-development work are tuning into those frequencies, those telluric frequencies, and then they are getting those new concepts, those new ways of living, which are really ancient. It's just the kind of village scenario. If a village burns down, everyone gets together and builds a new house, or and it's the kind of cooking pot scenario where no one owns the cooking pot. Maybe 1 or 2 people maintain it, but everyone contributes to that cooking pot with an ingredient, and then everyone gets to share that meal. So no one is lost out in this system. Everyone is included in that holistic system. And I'm working with people like Ham Gregory, Diana Cooper, and Catherine McBean from PHA, People's Health Alliance. They're connected with our network, and we've got various other people in the network who are of the same mind. Really, they're setting up these communities to feed themselves, to be self-sustainable, so they don't have to kind of give it away. And it's you're seeing all these communities popping up now because people are really getting it. It's still very much in its embryonic stage because a lot of people haven't made that kind of mind shift that sort of mindset shift. But there are people leading the way, and then that's setting the alternative narrative, because really we've got kind of 3 choices. You've got slavery, kind of and death.
It's not.
Or you kind of got a holistic society. I mean, but if you want to go down those first 2 routes, fair enough.
So be it. Yeah.
And don't let me stop you, but I'm on the kind of abundance holistic way. Which keeps mankind going, kind of thing.
No, it's amazing to be here at this time.
Oh, it's a beautiful time. This play is just wonderful. Every day you get new ways to change and shift reality in a more positive way.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's so good.
If we're not having fun, we're not in the game. That's
absolutely. And if it's too complicated, it's not worth doing. Divine sacred geometry is simple. Things fall into place. If things are falling into place and it feels good and it's not overcomplicated, you know that you're in alignment, as you say, with alignment with your path, really. So so that's a good clue to kind of see where you're at. If things are complicated and causing resistance, you know, you have to release those and allow things to fall naturally into place in their sacred flow as well. So
it's fantastic. It's a great conversation, Matt. Can I just say I do have to do my 45 minutes. That's my pledge to myself. But I wanted to just ask you briefly, what can the attendees at the celebration expect from what you're going to bring us? Because you've been given some time to spend with us. You can go outside and do whatever you want. You've got a slot inside as well. So what would the attendees what are they going to have?
Well, really, I'm just going to be sharing ancient knowledge from Star Family. So all those kind of esoteric bits of information that you can use to help you, sort of tools really of knowledge to help people whatever level they're at, and then just mainly talking about Star Family and all the wonderful things that are happening there, and the general kind of situation on the planet at the moment as well, from the Star Family point of view, rather than the sort of human point of view. So giving people a general kind of overview of this amazing time and all the transformation and shifts that are going on. And then kind of if they want to do some practices or learn some more information, they can always hop on the Telegram page, where we as the community give assistance to each person there as well. So just generally things like that, and helping people understand what consciousness is, because you know, there's various, I explain it really from a kind of religious point of view perspective, a scientific perspective, and a sort of agnostic perspective, and a spiritual perspective. So using those kind of frames of reference, people can get an idea of where they're at, using their own frame of reference. So, but we're all kind of generally talking about the same thing, which is consciousness that we all share, which is, you know, under the religious filter, it would be seen as God as well. So, and you know, that we are the God spark. We are a fractal spark of source, which is what people will call God. So it's helping people tune into that through whichever way that they perceive, you know, their reality.
One last question as well. And when I first heard about the work that you were doing, the first thing that came to my mind was James Gilliland in American.
Oh yes, lovely James.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, and I actually thought you know, partly your consciousness is partly what James is doing, and I really resonated with the fact that we kind of had our own James Gilliland. I'm not going to put that label on.
I haven't got a ranch yet. I'm working on it.
But yes, but that's you know, but it's very inspiring to have you amongst us, and actually for you to, you know, I'm very grateful for you to actually be doing the work out in public, because, you know, it makes a big difference to have people, you know, actually rise up and be empowered and tell their story and share their knowledge so freely. So I really appreciate you for that, Matt, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the celebration. So thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.